An Indiana man accused of murder has won his GOP primary challenge for a local election. He won it from jail. Andrew Will Hoyt was charged in March for allegedly killing his wife, who had finished her last round of chemo for breast cancer and was seeking a divorce after learning her husband was having an affair. According to the Indiana State Police, the couple got into a domestic dispute when Will Hoyt allegedly hit his wife in the head with a concrete gallon-sized flower pot, placed her in his car, and dumped her body in a nearby creek. Will Hoyt initially lied to police about his wife's whereabouts, but later admitted to killing her, claiming it happened after she attacked him, according to prosecutors. Despite being charged with first-degree murder, Will Hoyt won his primary for one of 3 seats on the Clinton Township Board and will be on the ballot in November if he is not convicted before
It just
then.
actually, every day, you think it can't get worse, and it does for what some primary voters across the country are willing to vote for. The market's just opened, and we're watching whether Wall Street can bounce back after stocks saw their longest streak of weekly losses in over a decade. And we're also watching gas prices, with the U.S. national average set to hit another all-time high today, less than 2 months after the last one. Right now, there are only 7 states where average gas prices cost less than $4. That's Wayne, columnist and editor for the New York Times, Deal Book, and co-anchor of CNBC's Squawk Box, Andrew Ross Sorkin. You know, Andrew, throughout, as you know, Willie Geist and I, we bet on the dogs. We don't, mm-hmm. and the ponies. Mm-hmm. We play the ponies. We don't really do this whole Wall Street thing. But I have noticed throughout COVID, every time there was a dip, 3 days later, 4 days later, people would buy the dip, and the markets would shoot back up. This is the first time in over 2 years that we've seen these dips, and you keep waiting for it because the whole feeling was what goes down must go up, and it always has. Not this time, not yet. Why?
Because there's a sense that rather than being a V, that there could be a long L, if you will. That's the real concern. What's happened here is during the pandemic, so many of these companies' earnings effectively was pulled forward, right? All the big tech companies, everything was pulled forward. And now when people are looking at these companies, they're saying, well, what's the growth story in the future if we're going to be paying these quote, high multiples, these high prices for these stocks, and people are significantly less confident about that. You add the Federal Reserve on top of that, with higher interest rates, which means everybody's costs are going up. You add in the oil prices, which you just talked about, and that's taking money out of people's pockets. And it's starting to feel like it's going to be a tougher go for the next 12 months. So I would not anticipate we're to even buy in now. And by the way, this looked like 6 months, 12 months, 18 months ago, where exactly what you said, things would just pop back up. I think that's going to be harder.
All right. We want to bring you to an opinion piece from the Washington Post, where columnist Megan McArdle writes, although working from home can be comfortable, new graduates, you should actually go into the office. I don't think she's going to be very popular for this piece.
All right, I'm triggered.
But just hear her out.
No, the shocking.
Hear her out. And Andrew Ross Sorkin, want to hear your thoughts on this as well. You talk to a lot of business leaders, and a lot of people are still working from home. Anyone who schooled remotely during the pandemic knows the drawbacks of moving to video conference. The jerky, unnatural pace of conversation stifles spontaneity. The distractions of home make it easy for people to check out even when they want to pay attention. Over time, those deficits accumulate. You haven't made friends or built up a reservoir of goodwill with managers or peers that will carry you through rough patches. You didn't hear the gossip about your competitors that might alert you to opportunities or warn you off similar mistakes. You haven't listened to the war stories that teach you how to handle tricky situations or get roped into an interesting project because you were chatting to the right person at the coffee maker. When you depart, you aren't a fond memory, but just one less box on the Zoom screen. It's much easier to fire a box on the Zoom screen than the nice kid you ate lunch with last week. And as as an entrepreneur of my acquaintance likes to point out, if your job can be done from the beach, it can probably also be done from Bangladesh by someone who makes a lot less money than you do. So, Andrew Ross Sorkin, I'm wondering what you're hearing from the business community about this. I worry about young people not having that in-person experience, not making those mistakes when you walk in the door and really feel what it's like to interact with someone and develop those important relationships.
Well, look, I couldn't agree more with the author of this piece, and I think that the business community couldn't agree more with the author either. They want people back in the office. I can tell you from my own career, and I think I've told you the story before, but I was 18 years old. I had a 5-week internship at the New York Times with no intention of putting 2 words together, let alone a sentence, and an editor who had no idea who I was or how old I was bumped into me and overheard me talking about something and assigned me a story to write. That would never happen if I was living on Zoom. It just couldn't. It's an impossibility. And so there's no question building that rapport, building those relationships, it's something that can't happen. Having said that, could we live in a hybrid life where people work at the office 3 days a week as opposed to 5? Maybe. That makes some sense. Mm-hmm. And there is an argument to be made that, and some companies, especially tech companies, are making it, that they can access a more diverse group of workers if they can access them electronically all over the country. So there's got to be some of that, and there's going to be more and better tools. But I think that the truth is, at least, especially in the early sort of stages of your career, being with other people matters a whole lot.
I was going to say the early stages of the career, and Jonathan Lemire, let's bring you in. Early stages of the career, a mid-level of career. Even now, I mean, for me, what helped me all along was the personal interactions, getting to know people, not just my bosses, but middle managers, getting to know people that I worked with, building those friendships, but also, man, I mean, the intel that you pick up when you're just walking down the hall talking to somebody about a football game on Sunday. Yeah, did you see the game? And they go, oh my God, yeah. Oh, by the way, did you hear that the company's thinking about X? No, how did you? Yeah, and the things that you pick up day in and day out. This is something, again, maybe people aren't interested in getting ahead at work, but if you are, then being there makes a big, or at least it did in my career, and I would guess everybody that is on the screen right now and everybody that has worked with people on the screen could all say the same thing. We learn more by being around other people.
Maybe I should try talking about sports at work. Maybe that'll help. No, but to Andrew's point, I had a similar experience where my first job out of college, I had an internship at the New York Daily News. It was meant just to be for the summer, but I was there, was able to do some good work, but also build some relationships with editors and colleagues. So at the end of that summer, they said, hey, we're still not going to hire you. And mind you, they're paying me about $200 a week. But they said, we'd like to just keep you around. Maybe you just be an internship, keep your internship going for a while. And at that point, I had no other alternative. Either move back to Massachusetts or stay put. Well, that was September 1st, 2001. And I was in New York City. And 10 days later, covered, of course, the attack on the World Trade Center. And then from there, stayed on for months and eventually was hired. But none of these opportunities would have happened if you helped build those relationships. And of course, that is much easier done in an office setting than over a phone or a computer screen.
We're going to find different ways of doing things, and I think, Andrew Ross Sorkin, it's going to end up where you said, somewhere in a hybrid. I know for women, this could be life-changing and career-saving to have the opportunity to work hybrid or work from home at times. And so there's that whole conversation that we haven't had. So I just want to put a frame around that. I also would say that if we were working from home 15 years ago, Morning Joe wouldn't exist. So there you go. Andrew Ross Sorkin.
Well, wait, is that an argument then, I guess, for working from home?
Maybe.
Okay. I mean, for
this is a good point.
Most viewers,
Andrew Ross Sorkin, thank you very much for being on this morning. Coming up on Morning Joe, we'll take a look at the stories making the front pages across the country. We're also following some major sports headlines, including golf superstar Phil Mickelson reportedly gambling away $40 million. Yikes. And the 80-1 come-from-behind stunner at the Kentucky Derby.
Now coming down to the wire, at the center's ended, great strike,